On today's episode, we are talking about reading. And don't turn the episode off if you listen to podcasts and you don't like reading, because this is going to be a very valuable conversation. Now, I'm going again. Let me actually start this over. I didn't like that intro. Okay, 3, 2, 1. On today's episode, we are talking about reading. We are going to be talking about why reading is so important, some top business book recommendations. And so we are featuring none other than Margy Feldhune, CEO and co-owner of Interview Connections, the most voracious reader that I know. Hi, Margy.
Hello. I'm loving getting interviewed on this show. This is really fun. I like the format.
Yeah, and I love interviewing, so it works out very well. So earlier this year, Marky, we always talk about like the investments that we make. And she was like, listen, I want to join this book club called Thought Readers. Lisa Larder does it. And I was like, yeah, sounds good. I mean, you like to read, so definitely do it. And so Margy, at first, we would just want to give Lisa Larder a huge shout out because we absolutely love her and want to just highlight the work she does with Thought Readers. So first, just tell us about what is Thought Readers and what's the experience been like in that club?
Yes. So Lisa Larder is amazing. She is a very successful 7-figure entrepreneur. She's been in business a long time. She is really legit. Lisa Larder knows her stuff. And she's like me. She loves like the numbers. She loves the strategy. She is an incredible entrepreneur in a very no fluff way that I love. So we met through Iconic at Ali Brown's Iconic event. And then bonded because we were connected on social media, and we are both obsessed with her dogs. And she has 2 really cute long-haired dachshunds that she posts all the time. So we were like chatting about the dogs, and then we started chatting about business. And I started going to her for book recommendations because she has read like every business book ever. Like, she is just an encyclopedia, to the point where you can tell her, okay, these are some books I liked and these are some books I didn't like, and she can give you a recommendation of a book you'll love based on your preferences. So I was just kind of, as a friend, getting a lot of recommendations, and I knew that she had this business book club called Thought Readers, which is really cool. It's a group of entrepreneurs. There's a Facebook community where we read a book together every single month. And you can kind of pick and choose. If it's a month that you don't like, the book doesn't resonate with you, you can go, what I like to do is go into the back catalog of like books they've done previously, and then see, oh, this one looks perfect for what I need right now, and I'll read one of those. But it's great. It's a very affordable investment. I won't say it since this is evergreen and prices change, but it's incredibly affordable. It's a really cool community of entrepreneurs. And I really love to be constantly learning. Like, that's what's fun for me. That keeps me engaged in the business and excited. I want to be learning all the time. So joining Thought Readers was kind of a no-brainer for me. And it's been really, really fun. She also offers a lot more in Thought Readers. Like, there's calls. She offers some coaching, and she's an incredible entrepreneur and coach. So it's a cool opportunity to hop on Zoom with her. And she also does author Q&As. So she has gotten some really big name authors. I believe Seth Godin spoke to them on Zoom. So she gets a lot of these authors to come and answer questions. It's a very cool experience.
Cool. The thing that I love it is that you will tell me which books to read because I'm not a huge reader. I've definitely gotten better at reading more this year. But I love it because there's some books that, I'll read and then I just don't really stick with, but Margie will be like, no, like I read this, like like it's perfect for you. And she knows me so well. So it's like great to have somebody that knows you really well recommend the book that's right for you. Because there's certain books, I mean, just like in the last episode, The Power of Now, you got it and then put it down, it just wasn't the right time. So sometimes there's great books, but not the right time. So if there's listeners like me that are just like, they're like, I don't read a lot, right? Talk about your like reading practices. Like, are you listening to audiobooks? Are you reading paperback, Kindle? When do you schedule it into your day? How do you get so much reading done?
That's a good question. So first of all, we will definitely put a link for Thought Readers in the show notes, because if you were listening to that and you were like, I need to know Lisa and be part of this, you definitely should. Honestly, I don't really schedule it in. Like, so I like audiobooks, and also I have a Kindle, and getting a Kindle was amazing because lugging around all these books all the time, especially like on trips when I wanted to read a lot, was really hard. So I love my Kindle Paperwhite. Not sponsored. I am not an affiliate.
I know you sounded like you were going to go into an ad
Yeah.
there. I love my
Nope, not
Kindle
an ad.
Paperweight.
I know. I just want to say the one I have because I do like it. And I think it has a little bit less blue light than some other ones. But that's been amazing because I can hear about a book and have it right away and be reading it within like a minute. So I listen to audiobooks, and then I also read on Kindle. So I'm usually, I don't know if I would recommend what I do because I can be kind of chaotic with certain stuff. Even though I love structure and numbers and stuff, I'm a little bit chaotic in my own practices. So I'm reading like multiple books at a time right now on both Kindle and on audiobook. And it sort of depends what type of day I have. I like to read a little bit in the morning, but I don't always. And I definitely go through phases where I'll get really into a book and I'll read every morning. And then I go through phases like now where I do a lot of knitting and listening to audiobooks. I also
Now, is knitting a way that you're having more fun in life?
I'm so into knitting. I love knitting so much. It's so relaxing. I had like taken a knitting class in high school when I was like 15, and like learned how to do basic knitting, like make a scarf. So I'm getting back into it now because I wanted something to do. This actually ties back into books. So I wanted something to do on days where it's not good days to take a walk so that I could listen to an audiobook, because I can't just sit there and listen to a book and do nothing. I'm like way too ADD for that. But knitting and listening to an audiobook is really great. And then when the weather's nice, as Jess knows, I am like an avid walker. And so like taking a walk every day is how I like think. It's how I reset. It's like where I get most of my best ideas. So I love audiobooks because I can listen to them on my walk. And when it's nice weather and I'm walking for at least an hour every day, I get through them pretty fast. So it sort of just depends, but I like to have books on Kindle and audiobook. And sometimes I get the same book on both. And we're going to get into my top recommendations. There are certain books that are so good that I like to consume them both ways because I want to like immerse myself in them. Generally, it's personal development. And Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza is one that I have been listening to and reading because he has a lot of like brain diagrams.
Yes. Can you sync it? So if you put it down on the Kindle, you could pick it up at the same place on audio, or no?
That's a good question. That feels like something you probably could do
That would be a good
because
feature.
Amazon owns everything, but I don't know. I also don't. So there's certain things, like if it was like a really tactical business book, I would get it on one or the other. With personal development-y type books, and we talked about this with The Power of Now in the last episode, they're so immersive. Like it's not just about collecting the information, it's about the frame of mind they put you in while you're reading them. So for books like that, I don't mind rereading and re-listening because it puts me in that frame of mind and I get something different out of it every time.
Love it. Yeah. And just in case anyone's curious about my book habits, I read on a Kindle. I don't know if it's a paperweight. But I do like the Kindle because I've been going to the gym in the morning. I joined the Y. And so if I'm on like the stair machine or the bike or even the treadmill, I can read it, while I'm exercising. So awesome. All right, let's get into some book recommendations specifically for our audience, right? Because everyone listening here is an entrepreneur, wants to monetize the mic, scaling their business. What are some of the top book recommendations you want to instruct our listeners to read?
Yes. And I will say, I also read fiction. I'm not going to talk about specific fiction recommendations, but I love fiction. I love stories. And I guess the way it is relevant is like great podcast interviews, great marketing, great messaging. It is story based. So I will say that I just read like some like cozy British mystery from the 20s that was just like very much empty calories, but was great. So I also read fiction. So sometimes I won't read business books for a while. I'll listen to them on audio when I walk, but when I'm reading on the Kindle, I'm like focusing on novels. Top books.
Well, before we go into the top books, I do love that you bring that up. And I think it's a good opportunity to really just emphasize that reading really helps you be a better podcast guest, like 100%. And that is one of my big motivators for reading. Sometimes when I don't feel like it, like I always feel brighter and more smart and like smarter. I'm not going to edit that out, whatever.
No, keep it. We're keeping it a hundo, guys.
But it's true because when you read these books, it's like, you're like, oh, I kind of knew that, or I just learned about that, but it helps you, put it into a different perspective. And when you're being interviewed, you want to be able to consistently, by refining your messaging, it's all about describing things in different ways and telling stories in new ways. And reading is one of the best ways where you can really sharpen those skills because you're seeing how other people teach things. So,
yeah.
All right. Top book recs.
Okay. The Power of Now is my top book rec always. And that's relevant for you if you have a business or not, because it's just relevant for anyone who's a human being, but it really helps build an effective business because we all know how important your mindset is in having a business and scaling a business and not going crazy once you have scaled a big business. So it's important at every phase. So The Power of Now would be number one. Who Not How. And actually Lisa Larter, this was one of her recommendations to me because I told her the books I was looking for, what I wasn't looking for. And she was like, read this. And that one really is such a life changer for your business. So that's one of those ones too that people talk about all the time. So if you're like me and you've heard about that book, like you feel like you know it because you know the concept and you hear about it all the time, it really is worth reading or listening to the whole thing because I found that so incredibly helpful. All right, number 3, Profit First.
Yes.
This one. So people say a lot of things about reading, right? Some people are like, well, if you don't implement, it doesn't matter. Yes and no, it depends on the book, in my opinion. There are certain things like The Power of Now that isn't super implementy, right? It's a mind shifter. And I really like books like that. And there's nothing to implement. It becomes infused in everything you do and you end up by default implementing it, but it's not tactical. Profit First, you need to implement it. Do not read this book and not implement it. And no judgment, because people do that all the time, but you really need to go into it from a place of, I'm implementing the Profit First system in my business and I'm reading this book so that I can fully understand how to do it, or just understand if I hire a Profit First professional, which we did. John Briggs, we will link to him in the show notes as well, is incredible. So he does all our taxes and our Profit First and our accounts. But as a business owner, you need to at least have a working understanding of all the systems. So Profit First is huge. It really can change your life and change your business. And I would not recommend anyone grow a business without implementing Profit First, because the bigger it gets, the worse things will get if you don't use a system like this.
Yes, I love it. I 100% agree because I read it a long time ago and did not implement it. And I wish I did. So yes.
Yeah. I mean, people do all the time.
Yeah.
It's just one of the things, but definitely read it to implement.
And obviously Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza, which I am personally loving, that you recommended to me. It's such a good book.
Yes, that one is one I'm loving. And it's sort of what we talked about in the last episode with The Power of Now, and a little bit in this one, of you sort of get introduced to things before you're ready, before they really resonate with you. And then eventually you're like, okay, it's time. Because I had heard about Joe Dispenza. Our friend Shelly, who we're in a mastermind with, was talking to me about it and was like, oh, you would love him because you like love a lot of other people in that space. And I just kind of filed it away and didn't take action. Like, it just, the time wasn't right. And I was working on some content unrelated to Joe Dispenza and kind of unrelated to mindfulness. I'm creating all this stuff about the science of decision making and how people can become better decision makers, which will be coming soon. but I ended up down this rabbit hole that led me to an article that led me to an article that led me to an article. And then the article, the last one, mentions Joe Dispenza sort of in an offhanded way. And his name was hyperlinked. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's time. So I like clicked on the link. It took me to his website. I checked out his YouTube. So I had sort of filed him away and then was like, okay, it's time. So I checked out what he had. I checked out his different offerings. I looked at what books he had. And then based on kind of the title and just like a feeling, I picked Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I've really, really been loving it. I've since gotten one of his other books that he wrote before that. And I highly recommend that book. I think it's really cool. And I think for people who need something a little bit more solid when it comes to like the law of attraction stuff, which I love law of attraction. I believe in it. I use it. I've been using it for a really long time, but I don't always talk about it because sometimes I'm like, this feels a little bit too woo-woo. He breaks it down in a very scientific way that I think is appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah, I love it because it's stuff that I always thought was just like woo woo that like I choose to believe, but I'm like, oh my God, it's science. Like this is actually real.
Yeah. It's very cool to see like what actually happens in the brain when you're visualizing what you want, when you're changing your energy. And it's the results that people generate is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your book recommendations and your tips for reading. Where can listeners find you, Margy?
In this business.
Yes, interviewconnections.com. We could do a different call to action. That's I don't know what the call to action is when I'm interviewing you. Because also our normal outro is like to the Facebook group, which I don't know if we want to re-record that.
We should re-record that for sure.
Yeah.
We should probably let's see. Maybe get them, where would they hear about the masterclass? Like maybe get them into the opt-in, like the listicle or something.
Well, just sending, I always just say, let's make it our website because we have the countdown for the masterclass will always be at the top of the page. So whatever we're kind of doing is going to be obvious on the homepage of the website. So
yeah, I feel like for our own podcast, I want to have a really strong call to action, but I also like, it does keep changing. And like,
right. Like there are a lot of podcasts
into a listicle every episode.
I know. And, you know, obviously there's lots of podcasts with the Facebook group and the outro. We're not going to go back and change those. So, yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, hey, our homepage of our website was my call to action for a long time. And I think for certain people it's okay.
Okay.
So, all right. I'm trying to think of still a strong way to end just the episode portion before an outro. Okay. Turn off this video. I'm not going to use this. I don't even remember where we left off.
We like finished the interview and then you were like, so instead of saying how can listeners connect with you, you could just do what you did in the first episode and just give the call to action.
Okay.
Oh shit. You know what we should have shared in the book one is the little free library books things I've been doing.
Oh yeah. Okay. Here. And that can be your tip. That'll be the call to action. Go get some life-changing books. Okay. I feel like I'm losing brain power.
I know. It's okay.
Okay. So to finish out this episode, Margy, can you leave our listeners with one inspiring tip that they can take action on with their reading?
Yes. So something I've been doing is buying copies of the book that has been the most influential to me, which was The Power of Now. And then I ran through my 5 copies of that. So I just ordered 4 more and I got 4 copies of Pema Chodron's When Things Fall Apart. And what I have been doing is getting multiple copies of these books that truly impacted my life and changed my life and changed how I saw the world. I've been writing little notes, sometimes with little drawings of my pets, and then I've been leaving them around at little free libraries around my neighborhood. And that's something that is all over the country, maybe all over the world. So you can look it up and find little free libraries, or you could always give them to regular libraries or leave them in places where you know people will find them. And it's been really fun to like leave them and then go walk by again and see that someone has taken them, and just knowing what an impact those books had on me, knowing that they're out there impacting new people. So my challenge to you is to buy 3 to 4 copies of a book that really changed your life and leave it somewhere where strangers can find it. Bonus points if you have a cute note, so that it can go out there and continue that ripple effect of changing lives.